Entitled parents tried to take over my wedding, then blamed me for ruining everything. AITA. Hey Reddit, I need some advice on whether I was in the wrong here because the whole situation with my parents has spiraled out of control, and now I'm left feeling confused. Here's what happened. I'll break it down, starting from the very beginning. Since I was young, I always imagined my perfect wedding as something simple yet elegant, surrounded by my closest friends and family, my fiancé, and I shared the same vision, a small, intimate ceremony where we could celebrate our love without all the extra fuss. We were planning on having around 50 guests and holding the event outdoors in a beautiful garden setting, but when I sat down with my parents, Joe, my dad, and Taylor, my mom, to tell them about our plans, it was like they didn't even hear me. The moment I mentioned small wedding, Taylor's face immediately dropped, and she said, "That's not enough. You need a big wedding to invite everyone from our side of the family." For context, my mother is someone who loves grand, over-the-top events, and my dad always goes along with whatever she says. I should have seen it coming, but I was shocked when they started talking about having 200 guests and hosting the reception in a massive ballroom. They also wanted a bunch of extended relatives I hadn't spoken to in years and some family friends I barely knew to be there. At first, I thought it was a misunderstanding. I calmly explained that we wanted to keep things small, with just our closest people, and didn't want a big party. My mom was not having it. She started listing out people I had to invite, and my dad chimed in saying, "It's not just your wedding, the family should be involved too." I was stunned. I mean, it is my wedding. I tried standing firm, saying that we were sticking to 50 people, and if we added more, it would take away from the intimate vibe we wanted. Taylor's reaction? She acted offended, saying that it wasn't fair to exclude family and friends who had been there for us all these years. Joe nodded along, as if this whole thing was totally reasonable. Despite the guest list argument, I hoped my parents would back off. I was wrong. My mother started taking over the planning in ways that were completely beyond our control. She booked appointments with florists I didn't want, arranged a cake tasting for a giant, elaborate cake that looked like it belonged at a royal wedding, and even started planning a grand ballroom entrance with a live band. I remember one day I got a call from her, excitedly telling me about how she had found the perfect venue for 300 people. I told her again that we didn't want something that big, and she brushed me off, saying, "You'll change your mind when you see it, trust me." I felt like I was losing control of my own wedding, and every time I tried to push back, I was labeled as ungrateful or unreasonable. Joe would always say things like, "Your mom is just trying to help. Why are you making this so difficult?" The biggest betrayal came when I discovered that Taylor and Joe had gone behind my back and sent their own guest list to the venue. We had already finalized everything with 50 guests, but suddenly I got a call from the venue confirming a 200-person reception. I nearly lost it. I called my parents furious. My mother played it off like it wasn't a big deal, saying, "It's better to have too many people than too few. We can always cut back if you really want." I told her I did want fewer people, and that they had crossed a line. Joe, as usual, took her side, saying that I was overreacting, and that the more, the merrier. At that point, I knew I had to put my foot down, my fiancé, and I decided to take control of the situation. We informed the venue to stick to our original 50 guests and to disregard any further instructions from my parents. We canceled the expensive upgrades my parents had sneakily arranged and reset everything back to what we wanted. When I told my parents what we'd done, they were livid. My mom accused me of ruining the wedding and embarrassing her in front of the family by going against her plans. Joe echoed her sentiments, telling me I was being selfish and disrespectful. They both said if I wasn't going to include their friends and extended family, they wouldn't attend at all. As painful as it was, I told them that if they couldn't respect our decisions, they were free to skip the wedding. I never thought it would come to this, but it felt like my only option at that point. The wedding was supposed to be about us, not about making a spectacle to satisfy their ego. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, things were icy between us. My parents barely spoke to me, and when they did, it was through passive-aggressive comments like, "Well, I guess you don't need us anymore, or you regret treating your family like this." The day of the wedding finally arrived, and as much as it hurt not having my parents there, the ceremony was beautiful. It was exactly what we had wanted, a small, intimate celebration of love, surrounded by people who truly supported us. My parents didn't show up, as promised, which made it bittersweet, but at the same time, it felt like a weight had been lifted. I had taken back control of my own day. After the wedding, things went from bad to worse. Taylor started spreading rumors in the family about how I had ruined the wedding and disrespected them by cutting them out. Joe backed her up, saying I was ungrateful and had made everything harder for everyone. Some extended family members reached out to say I should have just let my parents take over, that it wasn't worth all the drama. I tried explaining my side, but it felt like no one wanted to listen. Taylor had successfully turned some relatives against me, and they all seemed to believe I was the one in the wrong. Since the wedding, my relationship with my parents has been fractured. We barely speak, and when we do, it's always tense. I can't help but wonder if I could have handled things differently or if there's something I missed that could have prevented all of this. But at the same time, I don't regret standing up for myself and my fiancé. This was our day, and we deserve to have it the way we wanted. So, Reddit, here's where I need your judgment. Am I the asshole for standing my ground and not letting my entitled parents take over my wedding, even if it meant losing them on the day itself? Or should I have just gone along with their plans to keep the peace?